There was some big news this week related to Samsung Dex, the Windows-like platform that appears when you plug your smartphone into a monitor. It's big enough that it actually might be a little scary for people who rely on Dex for productivity or for whatever it is that you like to use Dex for, because it's a significant change to the platform that could make it much different in the future. So I want to go over today what's changing, why it's changing, and what it could mean for people in the future who use Dex now or possibly are planning on using Dex sometime later on because they're going to get a Samsung phone or whatever. So very quickly before I get into this, let me just explain Dex to people who maybe are watching this who don't know what Dex is. So when you plug your smartphone into an external display of some kind, usually it just mirrors your phone. So you just see what you normally would see on your phone, your home screen and all that stuff. With Dex, when you connect your phone either wired or wirelessly to a monitor, a television or whatever, it actually looks like Windows. Like it creates like a Windows-like system. So you can see an example down here. So this is what you would see. You've got like your icons, you've got your taskbar at the bottom. Like it looks like Windows. It's a really interesting way to use Android because it makes it so your phone is basically a traveling computer. All you need is a monitor and a mouse and a keyboard and you're off to the races. So pretty cool. So this has existed since 2017. Samsung introduced Dex with the Galaxy S8 series. So it's been a while. And lots of Samsung fans have become very reliant on this system because no other system can match it. Motorola has a system, Huawei has a system that are very similar to Dex. But if you want the best one, you have to get a Samsung flagship to get it. So Michal here at Android Authority wrote this article that Samsung killed its classic Dex mode in One UI 8, but there's a good reason. So if you just look at this headline, the word killed is dramatic, and it might make you nervous that Dex is going away or something. So let me explain what's actually happening here. So a few years back, Samsung introduced a new Dex mode. So when it introduced this new Dex mode for tablets, it then converted the Dex that people had been normally referring to as classic Dex. So now there are two. There's classic Dex and new Dex. And the new Dex was just for tablets. So what's happening here is that Samsung is getting rid of classic Dex and moving solely into new Dex. And this is happening with the One UI 8 update that's rolling out eventually for Samsung products. Now, so what is the difference between new Dex and classic Dex? So classic Dex dates back to 2017. And in 2017, there was no Android desktop system. So, if you plugged in just a random Android phone, there was no code at all within the operating system for a desktop style display when you hook it up to an external monitor. So in order to create Dex back in 2017, Samsung had to create this itself. And this was a massive undertaking that required it to change code and create new systems within Android and take Google's existing code and swap it around. And it was massive, big deal because Samsung was starting from scratch. Fast forward to this year, we've seen a ton of information within Android to suggest that Google is working hard on creating a native desktop mode within Android. So what's going to happen in the future is that you're going to have this Android native desktop mode that's going to be available with any phone that has the Android operating system eventually. And then you're going to have Dex, the classic version of Dex, that's going to be on top of that. And they're going to conflict, and Samsung's going to have to work, around the clock to make sure that its version of Dex doesn't mess with the Android desktop system, and vice versa. And that's just too much. Samsung doesn't want to do that for very good reason. Once again, just like Michal's headline up here, Samsung killed its classic Dex mode in One UI 8, but there's a good reason. And the good reason is because the native Android desktop mode is going to make the classic version of Dex irrelevant. So what's happened is that Samsung has eliminated the classic version of Dex from One UI 8, leaving only the new version. And this sounds fine, but the big problem is that there's a laundry list of things that no longer work in the new version of Dex that you may rely on the classic version of Dex. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time going through every single thing here, but in the article you can see here we have some settings for taskbar, keyboard, set the default audio input, auto start when HDMI is connected, flow pointer to phone screen. It's a whole list. So if you're really fascinated by this, I highly recommend going to the article. I'll leave a link in the description and read about this so you know what's going away. Now, to be clear, the basic functionality of Dex has not gone anywhere. When you connect your phone to a monitor with One UI 8, you're still going to get a desktop layout. You're still going to be able to open your apps and use your keyboard and mouse and all that stuff. The basic functionality is going to be there. But if you're somebody who's heavily relied on Dex, the classic version of Dex, you might plug in your phone with One UI 8 and be like, hey, everything's different now. Like all the things that I rely on aren't here, and that sucks. And it's going to be a little bit of a growing pain there. But the benefit is, the thing that's going to be good in the future is that when the Android native desktop mode finally becomes, a thing that we can actually just like use without having to tweak Android or set flags or whatever. When that actually comes to be, then Dex is going to be so much better because Samsung is going to have the core underlying structure of the desktop system already laid out for it, and then Samsung just has to build on top of that. So we could see Dex become much, much better than it ever has been over the next year or two. Which is really exciting. And it's going to make things just better for everyone. It's going to also mean that when you buy a non-Samsung phone, like a Pixel or a OnePlus phone or what have you, when you plug that phone or connect it wirelessly to a monitor, you're going to get a desktop system. It may not be as good as Dex, but it's going to be something that actually works without having to fiddle with Android settings or go into, the flags and all those types of things. So very exciting stuff. But yeah, I just wanted to make this video really quickly because this headline that Michal created is really good and 100% accurate. Samsung has killed its classic Dex mode in One UI 8, but it also might make people nervous about what that means for Dex as a platform. So I just wanted to explain that really quickly. Please, by all means, go to the article and read it. And if you have any questions, jump into the comments of the article and ask Michal. Michal will gladly answer anything that you've got. So anyway, if you're a Dex fan, it's good news. But for now, it's going to be some growing pains. So you just hang tight, and eventually we'll get the Dex that we've always deserved. All right, thanks so much, guys. See you later.